with Joe Simon and Jack Kirby finally ending their 15-year-old partnership. On top of everything else, Mort Meskin suffered another mental breakdown, forcing his hospitalization in the Rockland Hospital in Westchester, New York. After his release, Meskin moved in with Jerry Robertson and his wife, Gru, who thankfully had a spacious West End apartment for him to room in. This was due to Mort Meskin's wife, Betty, divorcing him, unable to put up with the stress of his mental problems. As a result, Meskin could only see his kids on a weekly basis, and made it even worse when his wife was forced to put him in foster care, unable to care for them anymore. Meskin stayed in contact as best he could, taking him on weekend outings to Prospect Park and Coney Island, and Philip even moved back into him for a while, but he was never able to provide a home for them again. Meskin was able to return to National DC Comics, working on the books like House of Mystery and House of Secrets, but his art seemed to become lifeless. His storytelling had become more concise, but unfortunately this was lost on the DC editors at the time, namely Mort Weisinger and Robert Kanier, who treated Meskin with indifference at best. Reportedly, Robert Kanier even demanded Meskin crawl across the floor to prove he knew how a soldier did it holding a rifle after reviewing one of his war stories. At this time, DC was more of an assembly line when it came to artwork, which stifled Meskin's imagination. Mort Meskin eventually moved into a carriage house on Commerce Street in the Greenwich Village, where he created an art school with George Roussos, who lived in the same building. Frustrated by his DC work, Meskin started to paint personally and even had a show at the Amherst Gallery. Later, he started a store at Roussos to show and sell his art, which was mostly watercolors now. Meskin also took up ballroom dancing in the 1960s, where he met Molly Safran, who had 3 children from a previous marriage. He was shy at first, not believing that Molly wanted to dance, but she insisted. Through their eventual partnership, Mort Meskin was able to get off his medication, and she helped bring him back alive, so to say. According to his own son Peter, Mort Meskin needed the right partner, which sadly wasn't his own mother, but it was Molly. After 10 years at DC, Meskin left in 1965, despite the emergence of the Silver Age and many artists he influenced like Steve Ditko and Jim Sternenko becoming stars. He no longer was interested in comic books. Instead, Meskin went into advertising at Baden, Barron, Durston, and Osborne, BBD and O, taking over a position by Marvin Sline, a former Simon and Kirby artist who was now moving into animation. There, Meskin worked on campaigns for Pepsi, GE, and Schaefer Beer, ending up making more money than he did in comic books. Meskin would work for the firm for 17 years, seeing it as a career that he could lead to a comfortable retirement. It turned out to be an ideal fit, as his ability to work fast and do what was needed fit perfectly into the advertising world. Many comic book artists would do the same, such as Charles Barrow and Joe Simon. Despite this, Meskin still received attention from comic book fans who came to the advertising firm just to see the creator of Vigilante and Johnny Quick. Towards the end, the firm was bought out, switching the artist from salary to freelance, along with the option of being able to work at home. In Meskin's case, though, Molly insisted he still work in an office so he wouldn't be isolated, though he did get bored when the work slowed, thus channeling in his own personal art. Eventually, Mort Meskin married Molly Safran in the 1970s, and he lived at 2 Sunnyvale Drive in Yonkers. In 1978, they traveled to Israel for his son Philip's wedding, where he had immigrated to. By the 1980s, Mort Meskin was retired and choosing to spend his time volunteering at St. John's Nursing Home, decorating the halls with murals, creating greeting cards, and art in general, while Molly provided dance lessons to play the piano. It was a pleasant twilight for the troubled genius, able to express his art at a rewarding level while having a comfortable home life. Sadly, it would come to the end in the 1990s when Mort Meskin developed lung cancer from years of his smoking and finally dying in April of 1995 at the age of 78. On July 2013, at the San Diego Comic-Con, Mort Meskin was posthumously inducted into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame with the award presented by Sergio Aragonés, the famed Mad Magazine artist and creator of Gru the Wanderer. Meskin was one of the 6 inducted that year, the others being Lee Falk, Trina Rollins, Al Jaffe, Spain Rodriguez, and Joe Sinnott. Of course, Meskin's legacy as a creator of the Vigilante and Johnny Quick cemented his place here, but it's also his influence he gave to future greats, notably Steve Ditko, Joe Kubert, Jim Sternenko, and Alex Toff. One could only imagine the heights Meskin could have reached if only his mental problems hadn't derailed his career multiple times, especially considering he was an early rival to Jack Kirby, arguably the greatest American comic book artist in history. Nevertheless, his legacy of brilliant art and influence left a permanent mark in the comic book industry, no matter how troubled his genius was. I would like to thank the chief source for this episode, From Shadow to Light, The Life and Art of Mort Meskin by Steve Bauer with Peter and Philip Meskin. A great coffee table-sized book that is both a beautiful biography along with great reprints of his numerous classic comics and artwork. A must-own for any comic book fan. And now is November 19th, 2020, time for the favorite comic book of the week. Once in Future, number 12, by Karen Gillan and Dan Mora, that finds Duncan and his grandmother taking on a new mythical creature in Grindel's mother, which is a little hard to do because apparently the only one who can kill Grindel's mother is Beowulf, but thankfully they have a surprising ally that comes along to help them out. Overall, this is another great addition to this series with Gillen mixing in classic storytelling with modern sensibilities as they're taking on a classic monster in Grindel's mother, but at one point Duncan's grandmother just breaks out a chainsaw to do so. And there's also some nice twists and turns showing that the story is a little more complicated and some of your enemies might not be so bad and so forth. So, yeah, nice shade of storytelling there. And plus, the art by Dan Moore is gorgeous. A nice mix of modern and mythic. And, of course, Grindel's mother just looks terrifying, just straight out of the classic myth. So, yeah, Once in Future, this is quickly becoming one of the most fantastical yet great reads in recent years. So, yeah, definitely picked it up. Once in Future number 12, a great comic book to pick up. And with that, that was the troubled genius of the great Mort Meskin. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And join me again next week when I will begin a two-parter on the life of the great artist Gene Colan. Until then, go out and enjoy yourself. Good comic book.